So the Jewish people are in Egypt. Why is a totally separate topic. We're not going to go into that. God appears to Moshe at the burning bush, and God tells Moshe, you got to go to Pharaoh. The time has come. We're going to get the Jews out of Egypt. Huge issue with the timing, 400 years, 430 years, 210 years, a lot of different numbers given in the Chumash, and different opinions exactly how the timing went. But whatever it was, it's time to leave. Moshe goes to Pharaoh, and he tells Pharaoh what famous phrase? Let my people go. Right, so if we would have a text inside of us, we know that is, of course, imprecise. Right? Specifically, what does he really say?
Send my people.
Right? And?
So that they can worship me.
So they can worship me. For how long?
3 days.
For 3 days, correct. So if you look at the Chumash, right, it's crystal clear that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Moshe Rabbeinu to go to Pharaoh and tell him that, I've come to free the Jewish people, he's clearly told to tell Pharaoh, let my people go for 3 days to serve me in the desert. That is exactly what Moshe says. Let the Jewish people go for 3 days to worship me in the desert. All throughout the negotiations with Pharaoh, when Pharaoh begins to relent someone and says, you can go, but you can't send the cattle. Well, we don't know how many sacrifices we're going to do. You can go, but you can't send the kids. We need the kids for you. You're just going to do worship. Well, we do our holidays with our children. But in all the negotiations, it is clear that they're discussing a 3-day journey into the desert in order to worship God and come back. Crystal clear, that's all the negotiations are about. So the obviously first question, which is really not our topic per se, but the first famous question that, of course, everybody asks is, why did God have Moshe say that? Seemingly, that's baloney. And it's clearly baloney because Moshe tells the Jewish people, God has remembered your affliction, and we're going to take you out of the slavery of Egypt to the land flowing with milk and honey. It's the famous milk and honey, man. That's where it comes up. It's right here. That's where the line starts, right? All the way back there, right? God said, we're going to get you out of here, take you to the land flowing with milk and honey, the Canaan, the Perezi. The Jewish people clearly know the plan is to leave and go to Israel, right? They know they had a Masor, they had a tradition, 400 years, right? They knew that this is a plan. They're going to be slaves, and they're going to go to the land flowing with milk and honey. So it clearly was not true. I mean, but it seemingly was not true. So why did God have Moshe say that? Why did they tell Pharaoh that and negotiate on that track when seemingly that was not the plan at all, and it was not the plan at all? That's the famous question, right? You're all familiar with that question. There are 3 famous answers, okay? Famous answer number 1, general standard answer is, you're right, it was obviously not the plan. God was going to take the Jewish people out completely, but God does not make requests from people that are impossible to keep. God doesn't make demands on people that are impossible for them to fulfill. He doesn't make unreasonable demands on people. To ask Pharaoh to let his slaves go completely would have been an unreasonable demand. And had Pharaoh said no, you could not have faulted him for that. It wasn't fair to ask. So he asked him an eminently reasonable demand. Give him a 3-day break to go on a, Discovery Shabbaton out in the desert, right? Singles weekend, whatever it was, right? Give him a 3-day break. But that was eminently fair. He said, drop dead, no way. Okay, good. Then you got what you deserve. No is no, you sure? Da-da-da, good. Then, the heck with you, we're out of here. Right? What happens if he would have said yes? I don't know, but he didn't say yes. And God knew he wasn't going to say yes. I mean, he didn't say it. He would have said yes, we would have worried about it. But that's why it was said that way. That's your famous standard answer. Your least famous answer is Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky. He has a very unique idea. He says, truth be told, that actually was the plan. The redemption was going to be in stages. Truth is, the time was not completely up. We're not getting into the time, the 400 years, 430 years, 210 years. We're not getting into that issue right now. But the timing is not so clear. According to Rabbi Yaakov, the timing really wasn't up. And actually, all we wanted now was a 3-day spiritual retreat into the desert, to recharge the spiritual batteries, to raise their level of sensitivity to God, etc. We were going to come back and continue working because the time was not up. Then we would ask again, time is up, let's go. So Moshe tells the Jews, the final plan. Plan is eventually to get to the land of Israel. We're going to start with a 3-day retreat in the desert, right? Worship God, come back, right? And then will be stage 2. We'll worry about it then. And if Pharaoh said yes, we would have gone for 3 days and Taka come back. Pharaoh said no. made the work harder, if you remember. Oh, made the work harder. Qualitatively, we were finishing up the time quicker, because in quality of work, right, it was expanding because we were working harder and faster. And then so we Taka left. But Pharaoh Taka said, yes, it was an honest 3-day request. Honestly, to goodness, that really was the plan. So says Rabbi Yaakov. Says the Or Chaim HaKadosh in a very, very lengthy Or Chaim. Says the Or Chaim HaKadosh a much more complicated answer, which brings us to the sheets we have in front of us. And to this, I have the Or Chaim photocopied in here in the back, but we're not going to do it inside. Says the Or Chaim HaKadosh, of course the plan was to get out of there. And we lied to Pharaoh. We lied to him and we told him we're going for 3 days. Why did we do that? Says the Or Chaim like this. Listen to it. It's a very long, complicated Or Chaim, but we'll sum it up quickly. Says the Or Chaim like this. The final goal was to drown Pharaoh in the Yam Suf. That's what we're working towards. Why is that so crucial? Well, we have to drown them because God always punishes people measure for measure. He drowned babies, we drowned them. So it's crucial to drown them. Why all the way out in the Yam Suf? Why couldn't it just have been a tsunami or something like that? We want it to be an open miracle. We want it to be a great miracle. The whole world should know God's power, and therefore you have to draw them out and see the split, and everyone hear about it. We wanted to make it a big razzle-dazzle thing, so we wanted to draw them out, follow the Jews out. We had to drown all of them. How are we going to get them out to the Yam Suf so that they will, be drawn into following the Jews into the water so that we can drown them? We need to do this. So he says, here's what we're going to do to pull this off. We're going to tell him we're going for 3 days. So he's going to think we're going for 3 days. We are then going to tell the Jews that when you leave, please make sure you borrow golden kesef chlezovu smolos, gold and silver vessels and dresses and clothing. If you remember, that's what they did. They were told to please borrow it. Now, we're not going to return it because we're owed the money for all our slavery. So it's not stealing. When we owed the money, we really have the right to do. We have the right to get it back any way that we can. It's our money. They owe us the money. So we don't feel bad about telling them we're borrowing it and not giving it back because they're not going to pay us the money. Can you please pay us for labor? What are you kidding? So we have to get our money somehow. So we're going to get the money that way. But we gain more by that. Now that we've gone for what they believe are 3 days, and we have all their gold and silver, which we claim that we're borrowing, why would they lend us all this gold and silver? They wouldn't give it to us if they thought we were leaving forever. They wouldn't lend it to us if they thought we were leaving forever. But if they think we're leaving for 3 days, which for a whole year of the 10 plagues we've been negotiating for, so they will certainly lend it to us because they think we're only going for 3 days. So that way we get the money. When they find out we're not returning and they were fooled, so they're going to be ticked off and they're going to want to chase us to bring us back as slaves. They're going to be doubly ticked off because not only did they lose their slaves, they were cheated out of all their money. This will really push them over the brink. And even though logically it doesn't make a lot of sense to chase the Jews, you've seen 10 plagues, or God is very powerful, give it up, cut your losses, and just let them go. So they fooled you. Okay, so what are you, crazy? God knows what else is going to happen to you. Just had Mighty the firstborn. Let it ride, man. The fact that they were cheated, which will make them upset. We took all their gold and silver, which will make them upset. That will cause them to not think militarily rationally and say, that's it, we've had it, we're just going to go get them. Right? Combined with a few other things which we're going to see. That will draw them out. They will chase them. We're going to be by the water. Right? We'll split it. The Jews will go in. They'll run after. We'll drown them. And bingo, we got them. And that's why we did it. I asked the Or Chaim, couldn't God have done it in a way which did not involve deceit? God is not a deceitful God. God hates lying and dishonesty. Couldn't we have pulled this trick off without that? So he says a Peladico addition. Remember, God punishes people measure for measure. how did the Egyptians get the Jews to be slaves in the very first place? All the commentaries agree. The verse says, we need a clever plan to get the Jews to become slaves. They did not wake up one morning with machine guns and say, you're all slaves. It would have been a revolt, says the Ramban. It's not how Pharaoh did it. He did it with some kind of clever plan. Not clear what the clever plan was. Some people say the Egyptians worked with them. Also, they were originally the ministers of the tax. The Jews were the ministers themselves, right? They fooled them into thinking this is all equitable, and slowly the Egyptians seemed to peter out. The Jews seemed to have more, and before they realized it, they were end up being the slaves and no one else was working. So he fooled them, right? He got them into being slaves because he thought he was so clever, and he fooled them. We're going to drown him in water by fooling him. Measure for measure. Mida keneged mida. So says the Or Chaim, that's where the 3-day business came from. Question?
So when the Jews finally left, or leading up to that, was it still on the premise of the 3 days?
Oh, excellent. Now the one question we have to ask ourselves is, when Pharaoh came and woke up Moshe in the middle of the night and said, get out of here, we're all going to die, the Jews please leave. And the Jews said, we want gold and silver, can we borrow some? And they said, yeah, take it, please go. When he sent them out, what was he thinking? Was he sending them out, assuming it's all that 3-day deal? Or was he sending them out saying, just go, I don't even want you anymore? Clearly, according to the Or Chaim, he was sending them out based on the 3-day deal. No one ever talked about more than 3 days. Rashi is going to learn that way, as we're going to see in a minute. Most people learn that way. It solves huge amounts of problems. There are people that say that when he sent them out, we asked him for 3 days, but he just said, leave, I don't want to ever see you guys again because you're killing me, and that's why we didn't have to come back. That is a great bone of that is an unclear point, which has great ramifications in the verses we're going to do any second now. That was exactly the question you had to ask. Thank you. Now, here we go. We have, for all you people out in video land, you have no text in front of you. You're just sitting there like dopes, watching my head and just listening. If you can get up off your chair, get yourselves a Chumash Shmos, that's Exodus, chapter 13, the beginning of Beshalach, this year would be a lot funner. Thank you very much. Let me ask you this. How many people here learned somewhere, in some class somewhere, that the Jews are in Egypt for 210 years?
Me.
Excellent. Where does it say that in the Bible? Thank you. Nowhere. Absolutely correct. Doesn't say the number 210 anywhere in the world. What does it say? How many years when God at the Bris Ben Absorim, right? The pact between the hands, what did God tell Abraham? Your children will be slaves in a land which is not theirs. How many years? 400. When the Jews left Egypt at the end of Parsha's Bo, it says, Moshav b'nei Yisrael sheyashu Mitzrayim, the amount of years the Jewish people were in Egypt, what does the number say? 430. Right? So that's a problem, because God only promised 400, and it says 430. Right? And where the heck did this famous 210 come from anyway? Are we doing this? You want to do this? Do it real fast. Pay attention, folks, real fast. We're not going to do this, but it's one of the famous anomalies. Here we go. So Rashi says that there's no contradiction between 400 and 430. It's a question of what you're counting from. The 400 is from the birth of Isaac, because the promise was your children will be foreigners in a land not theirs and suffer. So the promise couldn't begin until Abraham had children. As soon as Yitzchak was born, he lived in a land which was not his, because they didn't own the land of Canaan yet. It wasn't the land of Israel, it was the land of Canaan. So as a baby, he was living in a land which wasn't theirs. So that's when the 400 years started. It started with the birth of Yitzchak, right? And from the birth of Yitzchak until the Exodus, you calculate as 400 years. We're not going to go through all the numbers now, but certainly that's how it works out. Okay? Basically, Yitzchak was 60 when he had Yaakov. Yaakov was 130 when he came to Pharaoh and said, "Hi, I'm Jacob. That's my son Joseph over there, who just saved your neck." So that's 190. If tradition tells us they were in Egypt literally 210 and 190 is 400. That's where the number 4, that's where it comes from, and that's why they assume 210. Because if it's 400 years starting from the birth of Isaac, Isaac was 60 when he had Jacob. Jacob was 130 when he stood in front of Pharaoh, right? The Jews came to Egypt, right? So that's it's 190. If the total's supposed to be 400, ergo 210 in Egypt. That's your Yes, you're normal. Why does it say 430? Says Rashi, because the 430 is counting from when the promise was made, when God spoke to Abraham and told him, your children will be foreigners and foreign, that was 30 years before the birth of Isaac. So the total deal from when Abraham was informed till Isaac was born, till and all that, is 430. Right? That's Rashi famous. You know the famous problem with that? Excellent. Famous problem with that is, how old was Abraham when Isaac was born? 100. Absolutely correct. If this message was given to Abraham 30 years before, that means how old was Abraham at the pact between the halves? 70. The pact between the halves happens in the Parshas Lech Lecha. If you read the Torah in order, God appears to Abraham and says, Lech Lecha, leave your homeland, leave your birthplace, blah, 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 to the land that I will show you. Abraham arrives in the land of Israel. There's the battle between the 4 kings and the 5 kings, remember, and Lot gets captured, blah, blah, blah. And after all that, the story of this pact between the halves happens. Doesn't Chumash tell you how old Abraham was when God appeared to him and said, leave your homeland and go to the land of Israel? Yes, it does. It says Abraham was 75 years old when he left Haran to go to the land of Israel. So he was 75 years old when he left Haran to get to the land of Israel, but we just said that when God appeared to him at the pact between the halves of Egypt and Soran, he must have been 70, so that's a problem. Famous problem. What? Yes, so the famous answer given is that he really came twice. He came to the land of Israel before God told him to, when he was 70. God spoke to him. He went back to Haran. Then at 75, God said, leave your homeland and go to the land I will show you. Then he went back to Israel at 75, and that story, pact between the halves, is written out of order. That's one opinion. Right? Ramban says differently. Ramban says, where do you get the 400 and the 430? Ramban says like this: the Bris Ben Absarim, the promise to Abraham that his children will be in trouble for 400 years, was a conditional promise. It means I will take them out after 400 years if they're deserving and they're good guys. Right? Israel was not deserving and not good guys. They worshipped idols. They were 49th level of of tumah, moral impurity, and therefore they were not good guys. And therefore God extended it another 30 years till they woke up and said, "Okay, we're sorry. Let us out of here." And they screamed and they cried to God. So it got extended, really, right? And so though the promise was 400 and it was supposed to be 190, right? Isaac 60, right? Jacob 130 is 190. It's supposed to be 190 till they got to Egypt, then 210 in Egypt. Really, it got extended. The whole deal was 430 years, which means it wasn't 210 in Egypt. It ended up being 240 in Egypt because they got 30 years tacked on for bad behavior. Right? So says the Ramban.
But
right?
they were enslaved the whole time.
Oh, this is how long they were in Egypt. How long was the actual servitude? Tradition tells us 86 years. We're not going to get into where that concept comes from. Well, all that having been said, let's turn to our Parsha. We're now at Parsha's Beshalach. Okay, so let's see what we can do. Oh, nice, already 9:30. Puzzle is this, verse 17. So we have more here. Here's more Englishes if you want Englishes. Oh, no one wants that. I was such a nice guy. I made so many Englishes. Okay, you know what? I can do the English. You want the Hebrew?
No.
Okay, fine. I read English. Not so great, but and it came to pass when Pharaoh sent out the nation. God did not direct them or lead them. Derech Eretz Plishtim, through the land of the Plishtim, Ki Karofu, because it was close, Ki Amar Elokim, because God said, perhaps the nation will regret, will change their minds when they see war, Beshavu Mitzrayim, and they will go back to Egypt. So instead, what did he do? God had the Jews turn around, go into the desert to the Yam Suf.